Good morning, everyone. We'll just wait a minute for the last attendees. Welcome everyone in the call. We're now 21 participants. Maybe wait a few seconds more. All right, good morning. Welcome again to everyone in this introductory session of the Synchronisation Force second workshop. It's a long title. Let me introduce the people you see on screen apart from the attendants, like yourself. We have Sarah Pitternet from Trust IT, who is our host, and she will also moderate the Q&A session at the end of this workshop part. We have Simon Hudson, who will do part of the introduction, and that's actually quite good because he chaired the expert group on FAIR data, and we will use the report from that working group in this workshop series. I have to make apologies for Ingrid Dillo. She can't participate, unfortunately, due to family matters, so I'll try to cover for her part. Like we said, you're most welcome in this introductory webinar. It's a webinar style, it's part of the workshop, but let's begin with an overview. So a bit of rearranging of the screen. I hope you got that overview of what we want to do in this series of workshops. For today, we will introduce you to the FAIRsFAIR project and in particular to the Synchronisation Force. We'll talk about the stakeholders in this workshop, you in a way, and your colleagues. We'll look back on the first workshop we ran in November last year. We'll talk about the goal. Like I said, we will work with the recommendations in the report Turning FAIR into Reality. And of course, we expect something from you. It is a workshop after all. On a practical note, I think you're all muted. You can use the chat for questions. The link that you used to attend today's session, please keep that because it will be valuable, useful for the other workshops in the series. But you will get another email for the series, for the sessions you registered for. And then you will also find out who the chairs and rapporteurs for those sessions are. FAIRsFAIR as a project has, of course, an objective. And what we aim to do is to survey the landscape of, in principle, all FAIR activities in relation to EOSC. And not only survey the landscape, but bring together initiatives, projects, partners for dialogue and collaboration. The idea is that the FAIR ecosystem will really become a functioning part and an active community in EOSC, and that requires some alignment and harmonization. Specifically for this workshop, which is now a virtual series, we aim on identifying overlaps and the challenges and divergences also related to FAIR. And as the context, as the benchmark, we will use the recommendations and actions that were written in the report from the European Group of FAIR Data Champions, of FAIR Data, Turning FAIR into Reality. FAIRsFAIR as a project aims to support an overall knowledge infrastructure on the academic quality of data management related to procedures, standards, metrics, and all things. It's all based on the FAIR data principles with the goal of accelerating the goals of the EOSC at large. And that involves sharing knowledge, expertise, trajectories, tools, education, and so on. And it also builds and implements, in fact, recommendations made by the high-level expert group for EOSC and the expert group on FAIR data, as I said. In a nutshell, because I expect that many of you know about this, FAIRsFAIR is an infra-EOSC 5 project with a budget of 10 million euros. We started in March last year, so we now are into the second year. In total, we have 22 partners in the project from 8 member states, and the 6 core partners who each run a work package are DANS as overall project leader, the Digital Curation Center, the European University Association, Trust IT Services, the Science and Technology Facilities Council, and CSC Finland. And here's the overview of all the partners. And clearly here the message is we are a broad project. We have a large group of partners, and that makes sense when you talk about FAIR, because FAIR is all over the place, and the only thing to get a real FAIR ecosystem is to collaborate and to seek alignment. And that is something we also do within this project among all the partners. We have 7 work packages in total. As you can expect, there is a work package on project management. There is a work package on engagement, communication, and uptake. These are the 2 pillars at the side of the image. There is a work package on semantics and interoperability. And as we speak, they run a workshop on a minimum metadata schema. So we are a bit in competition with each other today. And because we are, like I said, FAIR is all over the place. Work package 3 delivered already a couple of landscape analyses. The focus here is on data policy and data practice. We have a clear focus on repositories in work package 4, aiming to help repositories get certified as trustworthy. And work packages 6 and 7 deal in particular with knowledge, competences, and expertise. Maybe I can say that work package 6 is more on the informal learning, the competences, whereas work package 7 focus on the formal curricula for data science and also on professionalization. So this is an overview of the kind of output we're seeking. Interoperability of FAIR resources, more FAIR data, but also more uptake and use of FAIR data, a network of trusted digital repositories that, thanks to a maturity model, can also learn about how advanced they are and seek steps how to grow towards more FAIR, a competence center for all communities, so not only the repositories, education also embedded in university programs. And clearly, seeing that we are in our second year, we have already a lot of deliverables out there. You can find them on our website, deliverables and other outputs like webinars, webinar recordings, training materials, and many deliverables are open for feedback for quite a long time, and we are looking for your feedback as well. So please have a look. Challenges. Of course, there are challenges. Let's start within the project. One of the challenges within the project is that we should speak the same language. If we don't do it in the project, it's even harder to do it outside of the project. Speak the same language, look for definitions, terms for FAIR skills, and so on. So seeking coherence. In a sense, we also seek coherence on a time base. So where it says that the EOS governing structure is a bit of a challenge, or at least serving that, that also has to do with getting the timings more or less in sync. All projects, all working groups have different timings, have different expectations for when their reports, tools, webinars, other kinds of outreach should be delivered. That is quite a challenge. And basically creating synergies with almost everybody and everyone is a challenge and a huge ambition in itself. Let me show you the landscape that we typically use in the FAIRsFAIR project. You will see FAIRsFAIR at the right-hand side at the bottom. You see EOSC working groups in the middle. You see ESFRI clusters, horizontals, you see the EOSC governance board. Intentionally, we did not aim to draw lines in this image because you wouldn't see any image at all. All of this is complex. There are a lot of overlaps. There are a lot of good intentions to synchronize, and we try to build on that. So FAIRsFAIR aims to provide input for the working groups, to the ESFRI clusters, the other intra-EOSC 5 projects in the left-hand column, and we are aided in that by what we call the European Group of FAIR Champions. You see the EGFC at the left hand at the bottom. It is linked to FAIRsFAIR, and I'll show you who these FAIR Champions are. You can find more information on all these individuals at our website. The link is here as well. We started out with 5 champions. By now we have 11. Today in the afternoon there will be a call among the champions and FAIRsFAIR people to get to know each other a bit better, because we all collaborate, but we do different things. The champions reach out based on their background, based on their network. They are all experts and doers in the field of FAIR data. They work, you can say, as an ambassador of FAIR by sharing stories, looking for synergies, contributing to training activities, and so on. We ask them to give feedback on the reports and analyses and white papers that we draft. and the involvement will grow over time, we expect. So maybe the champions in this call can raise their hands, and you see who is here. Thank you. We also have an internal group, the Synchronisation Force. The people who prepared this session for today are members of the Synchronisation Force, and we have many more. You will get to know them over time. The Synchronisation Force is composed of members of the work packages, and many of them have their links to other projects, to other task forces, working groups, initiatives, and so on. So here again, we seek to coordinate and to minimize overlap in dialogues. We look for mechanisms to collaborate on FAIR and making FAIR a practice and not just a set of principles. Another group of stakeholders in this landscape is now marked out here on this screen. That is the set of the projects all from this same Infra-EOSC 5 call. It consists of the EOSC Secretariat, you may know it's 5 regional or thematic projects: EOSC Synergy, NI4OS, EOSC Pillar, Expand, and EOSC Nordic, and the FAIRsFAIR project with the champions and the Synchronisation Force. And together we have a cross-project collaboration board. That board also is a kind of umbrella organization for 6 task forces. And more detail about them on the next slide. In particular, the task force on FAIR data and infrastructure is very relevant for what we do in FAIRsFAIR, but we have project members in all task forces, and all the other 5B projects do have their members as well, and many of them are in this call today. So can I see a show of hands, please? Thank you. Let's go back a little bit in the past. November 2019, we had a first workshop organized by the Synchronisation Force in Budapest. And the focus there was on getting to know the EOSC working groups a bit better. There were 5 working groups at that time, and we tried to map 7 FAIRsFAIR work packages and 5 working groups, which already was a challenge, I must say. And a lot has changed since. Of course, in the outside world, very much has changed since, but okay, I picked some elements here that are relevant for our collaborations. We have another EOSC working group on skills and training that started its activities. The group of FAIR champions grew from 5 to 11 members. And some conclusions from that first workshop in November were that we underemphasized how useful the recommendations and actions from the Turning FAIR into Reality report can be for synchronizing and bringing information together. So that is the structure now of this workshop or workshop series. Now we are going virtual. Another item that popped up in several of the discussions in November was who should be involved in the synchronization effort. Like I said, it was mainly the working groups that time. So this time the FAIR Cluster Projects and the Infra-EOSC 5 projects were invited. And in the 3rd and final workshop in the autumn, we will also invite horizontal projects like EOSC Hub and Freya and OpenAir. A minor activity point from last time is that we will set up a digest in addition to our newsletter, and we will start using this workshop series as content for this digest to share with other European projects. So these are the who in this workshop series. These are the organizations represented. And about the what and the why, the output of this workshop will be a spreadsheet of all the recommendations from the report Turning FAIR into Reality, with information from you, your project, your activities, your tools and project and working groups to chart where we stand. Of course, there will also be a regular report, and at the end of 3 workshops, so after the autumn workshop, we will write a white paper to recommend how alignment and synchronization around FAIR, open science and EOS can be encouraged. I don't know how often I mentioned turning FAIR into a reality, quite sometimes. This is for me the slide that shows what we will focus on in the next sessions of this series. This is also the point where I hand over to Simon Hudson and leave you. I'll be silent and Simon tells me when to swap the slides.
Thank you, Marianne. Good morning, everyone. Yes, as we agreed, Marianne will continue to drive the presentation, and I'll say next slide, please, when appropriate. So thanks for that overview of the project and the Synchronisation Force. I'm going to now lead us through really the practical things that we would like you to do in each of these virtual workshop sessions, and to try and contextualize that in the objectives of the Synchronisation Force, of the FAIRsFAIR Synchronisation Force. We'll be using the Turning FAIR into Reality report, and specifically the action plan and the recommendations as a framework to understand what is being done Europe-wide, and with the projects that Marianne mentioned, the projects and working groups and initiatives that Marianne mentioned, what is being done to address those recommendations and to address the action plan. So in order to prepare for the virtual workshop sessions, please read or reread the FAIR Action Plan on pages 59 to 75 of that report, and familiarize yourself in particular with the recommendations. Next slide, please. Okay, so this series of workshops, starting today with the introduction. Yes, okay, I thought we went forward to one slide too early. The Synchronisation Force, our objectives, to reiterate: to maximize coordination and minimize unnecessary overlap and duplication, to encourage the dovetailing of projects, and to promote mechanisms for collaboration on turning FAIR into reality. So I think you can see with those objectives why the action plan and recommendations from that report form a useful framework for understanding and for discussing and for analyzing what is going on across the initiatives mentioned. Next slide, please. So the series of workshops, what we want to do and achieve through this, an analysis of how well the groups that have been mentioned are responding to the Turning FAIR into Reality recommendations and action plan. And so we want to analyze, are there gaps? Across those initiatives, are there recommendations that are not being addressed? And if so, what does that mean? Does that mean that we need to direct additional effort towards that recommendation, and so we've got an additional recommendation to the European Commission, to the broad community? Or does it mean, on reflection, that that recommendation is unnecessary or less important? And that itself is an important finding. We're not regarding the Turning FAIR into Reality report as stone tablets from the mountain. It can be adapted. It should be, that action plan should be a living document. Secondly, are there activities that are going on that are recognized are important that are not covered by the recommendations and the action plan? And again, that would be an important finding. Does that mean that the recommendations need to be expanded? So I hope you can see by that the objectives and the sort of analysis that we want to undertake in this series of workshops. Next slide, please. So, as already mentioned, first request, please read the Turning FAIR into Reality report, and particularly the action plan. Familiarize yourself with the recommendations, and please also, so that you understand the recommendations as well, consider the actions which are relevant to each recommendation. They will be, it'll be important to take those into account. The second request, extremely important, in preparation for the virtual workout sessions, please make sure that in relation to your project or initiative or working group activities, you complete the spreadsheet which is linked there, and we'll circulate that link. It's really important to do that before the virtual workshop session, because we want to use the spreadsheet and the findings in it, the survey of activities that it represents, as the input to those sessions. If we spend those workshop sessions completing the spreadsheet, we will have wasted everyone's time. We want to use those workshop sessions to discuss what we see before us in that survey of activities presented by the spreadsheet. So when completing the spreadsheet, please consider these questions. What have you already done in your initiative, your project, your working group that addresses the recommendations related to each pillar? What has your project planned and scheduled, which will address these recommendations? Please provide brief but usable information. Please try and find that sweet spot between being direct and brief, but also sufficient information for the Synchronisation Force to act and respond and discuss the output mentioned. So what is the name of the activity or the output? Short description, a few words just so that we understand, we know what that's doing, the title, the URL, the deliverable number, and the due date where possible. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. Please make sure that the spreadsheet is completed before the relevant virtual workshop session. Next slide, please. So in the sessions, we'll be able to survey through that spreadsheet, which is structured according to the recommendations in the TFiR report. We'll be able to survey what is going on and hopefully to identify where the gaps are, and we'll have a basis for useful discussion. When discussing in the workshop sessions, there's only a limited amount of time, so we'll address the priority recommendations first and the supporting recommendations if there's time. There'll be a chair and a rapporteur in each of the breakout sessions, and you'll also have access to a template for collective note-taking, but it will be the primary responsibility of the rapporteur to ensure that that's completed. And we'd like the virtual breakout sessions, the virtual workshop sessions, to be structured around these questions which are on the screen there. And they, you'll see, relate very much to that, to the approach which I described a couple of slides ago. Are you doing anything of significance relating to implementing FAIR that is not covered in the recommendations? Does this need to be included in an updated action plan? And for this pillar, can you identify any gaps, any recommendations that are not being addressed? Where are the gaps, and do we need to feed that into a recommendation from the Synchronisation Force of the FAIRsFAIR project? Next slide, please. So the last few slides of this presentation. So first of all, sorry, before I move on to that, I hope that that's clear why we're trying to do this and the mechanisms by which we want to undertake this activity. And we'll be open for questions and clarification on any of those steps at the end of this presentation. Now I want to move into a relatively brief overview of the recommendations from the Turning FAIR into Reality report. I don't want to labor this excessively. The report is there, it's accessible, please read it. But just so that we understand the key recommendations that we're trying to respond to in the in the spreadsheet and in the virtual workshop sessions. So the recommendations and the action plan is laid out in these 6 columns, these 6 themes. We're calling them, for the sake of consistent vocabulary, we're calling them pillars. So when we're referring to pillars, we're meaning each of those themes. The key concepts that it's necessary to understand and to include in policy documentation and guidance documentation so that we know what FAIR is and what is needed to be done to implement it. Issues around FAIR culture, the culture of particular research communities or institutions, those technical elements of the FAIR ecosystem which is necessary to implement, and then of course skills, incentives and metrics, and investment, and to some degree governance. Next slide please. So I'm not going to go through each of these slides word by word, but just to isolate, just to emphasize the sort of things that we're looking for in the spreadsheet and then the subsequent discussions. The first pillar, those concepts that I mentioned. What are projects doing that we're surveying to help us define FAIR, to help describe and implement a model for digital objects, for FAIR digital objects, and to define the components of the FAIR ecosystem. Of course, below the line in that model, there are the supporting recommendations. And if we have time in the discussions, we'll go on to those. But please, in the spreadsheet, make sure you address the other ones, applying FAIR broadly, aligning and harmonizing FAIR and open data policy. Next slide, please. Secondly, moving on to the second pillar around culture. What are the projects across Europe that we're surveying doing to help develop interoperability frameworks, whether that's for particular domains or disciplines, or whether that's across domains for interdisciplinary research? What are they doing to ensure the good design and the uptake of data management plans? What is being done to recognize and reward FAIR data and data stewardship? And then the supporting recommendations, of course, which I'm not going to go through verbally, but please take those into account when completing the spreadsheet. Next slide, please. Ecosystem. 3 recommendations there, which are about the primary, or what the expert group that wrote that report viewed as the primary components of the FAIR data ecosystem. The semantic technologies, the metadata specifications, the standards, the vocabularies, ontologies, the common protocols. One of the objectives of the FAIR data ecosystem, very clear in the FAIR data principles, and which we tried to make sure was emphasized sufficiently in the report, is the objective of facilitating automatic processing of various sorts. That could be for data discovery, it could be for data access, it could be for data collection and analysis. What is being done across Europe to address those objectives? And how do we assess the effective functioning of that ecosystem? What are we doing to define those assessment frameworks, whether that's for repositories, which is included in the extract from the recommendation and action points there, or for other components of the FAIR ecosystem. And then, of course, the supporting recommendations as well. Next slide, please. Skills. Clear recommendation, I hope, in the report about the need to develop skills and professionalize those 2 roles, which we broadly categorize as the data science role and the data stewardship role. What's being done to define those curricula, to define those skills, and to encourage the professionalization of those roles. How is that being implemented? How are those curricula being implemented in the projects that we're concerned with? Next slide, please. Just 2 of these pillars left. So incentives and metrics. We often hear of course, that nothing will change unless we change the way in which the incentives in the science system, the research system more broadly, are managed and defined. And if we want a fair ecosystem, if we want the efforts of researchers to make data and other digital objects fair, we need to reward that as a key part of research activity and research output. And also we need to know how well recommendations like this and the building of the FAIR ecosystem is being addressed. So we need metrics to measure that, what is being done. So we need metrics for FAIR digital objects and for their components and for the components of the FAIR ecosystem. And we need some form of metrics to certify FAIR services. Again, we have already started work on that. The community has already started to work on that for repositories with things like Seal. How well is that being addressed? Are those metrics evolving for the FAIR ecosystem? And what metrics are being developed for other components of the FAIR ecosystem? And then the supporting recommendations. Are we implementing and monitoring those metrics? And what are we doing about things like data citation and next generation metrics, for example? Next slide, please. So this is the last of these columns, investment. It's important not to regard this as just for funders and the governance system for research and science. What are projects doing to make clear and implementable recommendations about sustainable investment? What recommendations are being made to guide the Commission and other funders, other national funders, towards strategic and coordinated funding? What are we doing to ensure sustainable funding for the FAIR ecosystem as described? Next slide, please. So closing up this overview, as I mentioned earlier, each of these recommendations has a set of actions. Of course, we designed the spreadsheet according to the recommendations. To have taken into account the actions as well would have made an even more monstrous spreadsheet than the one that we're working with. So don't feel obliged to address all the actions, but please do consider them to help understand the objectives of the recommendation as described. I hope that's clear. Next slide, please. And this is a worked example of the sort of response that we would like. The FAIRsFAIR project completed most of its column in the spreadsheet, working down against each of the primary recommendations, or the priority recommendations rather, and the supporting recommendations, and putting into each cell of each corresponding cell of the spreadsheet the information about the activity and output. So in this case, what is the deliverable, short description, and a link to where that output can be accessed. And what is also planned for the future. Milestone 4.9 in August 2020, quick description of that milestone. So I hope that's clear. That's the sort of level of information that we feel we need. And that will provide us with the basis for discussion in those breakout virtual workshop sessions. Next slide, please. So I believe this is the final slide, just going over the process and some quick reminders of how we're going about that. There'll be 6 working sessions, each built around the pillars of turning FAIR into reality. They don't come in the order that I've just presented for practical reasons and people's availability. But over that period, in the second and third week, well, the first and second week of May, there'll be that series of working sessions. So again, please familiarize yourself with those recommendations. please make sure that the spreadsheet is completed before the relevant pillar session, and we'll send around those precise dates so that everyone's fully aware of that. We don't want to waste everyone's time using the session to complete the spreadsheet. We want those sessions for informed discussion and analysis. So we'll send the reminders prior to each session and the reminder to complete the spreadsheet. Each session will be conducted by a chair and a rapporteur. There will be a shared document that everyone can complete during the session, and subsequent to the session, we'll work that up into a summary which will be sent to all participants for correction and improvement, and then that will be input to the report and overview. We will discuss this all together again in a plenary session with, we hope, exactly the same participants to review the process, to review the discussions in each of the breakout groups, and above all, to consider the draft report, which will by then have been circulated. Next slide, please. I think that's it. So over to you, over to questions, which I think Sarah is going to chair.
Yeah, thank you, Marianne, and thank you, Simon. Yes, I mentioned in the chat, if you have any questions or comments, feel free also to or write them there or raise your hand. I'll open the microphone to you. Any kind of question. There is one from Françoise. Talk.
Yes, it's hello everybody. It's a pragmatic question. I am not sure all of us will be able to attend all the sessions, to say the truth. And it would be useful. You said that you will take preliminary notes from each of the sessions. It would be useful if you send them to all the registered participants, even those who have not attended this particular meeting, I mean, sub-meeting.
Yes, we can. This is something, so I will be sending reminders prior to each meeting with details, as Simon said, about the chairs also who will be moderating the meeting, and also afterwards we can send the recap with all the materials shared to the full list. Maybe a note that might be useful. This series is meant for a particular set of stakeholders, and you're all part of. So including the EOSC Executive Board Working Groups, the EOSC FAIR project, Cluster Projects, and the Champions. We know this is a long series, so if there is anybody in your team working closely with you, involved in the same stakeholder groups, feel free to engage them in case you cannot join one of the meetings. Any other questions? Is everything clear? Any question about the spreadsheet itself? Each of the topics or the pillars? There's a question by Ilona. Yeah, a practical one about Zoom. So we are going to use Zoom, and you can keep this link for all the session. And so far, yes, you're not allowed to show your video just for a setting. I can open it up. So yes, this will help for each meeting if everybody can show its video if needed and if wanted. So this is something we can allow for the next issues. Thanks, Ilona. And there's one more question. Let me identify. Mark. Yes, Mark is one of our champions. Hi, Mark.
Hello. Do I have to do something to turn on the video? I didn't understand it.
You should.
Don't see how to let you see me, but it doesn't, maybe it doesn't matter. Is it coming? No, it's not there. Okay, I just wanted to make a comment about the nice diagram about the stakeholder. It's about the stakeholders where you have all of the boxes with the cluster projects in it, and the different elements of the EOS governance and things like that. So it's just to say a very positive comment that having all those things in one place, I think is very useful. And perhaps as the role of the champion, but just very practically in my day-to-day work where I'm saying, okay, you know, these projects are here, there's FAIRsFAIR, there's the EOSC, there are cluster projects, and we are one of them, we are part of ESCAPE. To understand that, you know, a cluster project of ESCAPE is just one of 5 cluster projects and that there are other fields, it's just a very useful mechanism for being able to say where these different things well, I was going to say fit in, but even just that they exist is something really useful when you're talking to different audiences, because even the people in the projects, I have to say, you know, even us in ESCAPE, we are not all experts in the landscape of all of these different projects and different organizations. So it just reinforces the context in which we are working to see these things. And so I'm just saying thank you for putting that diagram in the report, and just to let you know that it's really useful as a communication mechanism, and I plan to use it.
That's good to hear, Mark. Thank you.
Hello, then we have Abigail. Can you, I think you're allowed to talk now. Can you hear us? I see your hands raised. No.
Now?
Yeah,
there we go.
we can.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, great.
I just wanted to echo actually what Mark said. I'm quite new. I'm in Expands, and I've only been here for maybe just over a month. And this slide is so helpful for me because it gives me, I keep hearing about these different projects, but to see them all in one place like this and how they link together, or which ones go with which ones, and is just immensely helpful. So yes, I will be taking this back to the Project King Expands as well, just to, because I think, as Mark said, even within our project, it's not always, I think, 100% clear everything else that's going on. So this is really, really useful. So I would echo Mark's thanks on that.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I think I find these comments particularly interesting and useful because probably sometimes we give for granted these interlinks and relations between all these projects, which might not always happen. So we will take particular attention in this communication parts, even in the work that Synchronisation Force is doing. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question to you because I forgot to ask that earlier. We plan to share the list of people who registered for the series with all of you so that you have the names and know which stakeholder group people are in. We would not share the email addresses, so just your name and your stakeholder group. If there's anyone who does not like their name to be on the list, please let us know.
Yes, I've already pasted a link in the chat with the file to the file with all the registration we had so far, so I can copy it again. There are a few people missing their last minute registrations, which I will update.
I think from a few of you who registered very early, we missed the stakeholder information because we didn't ask for it. It's our fault. So Sarah, I don't know exactly which version you shared, but if there are some gaps in the stakeholder information, it would be great if you can help us fill that out so we know who you are and where you come from, and that will make it easier to, if we have follow-up questions in the analysis of your input, that will make our lives easier.
Yes, thanks. Françoise, do you want to talk? I think your microphone is open.
Thank you. Yes, I am here with a hat of Vice Chair of FAIR working group of the EOSC Executive Board. So it's the one on this schema which is yellow with subtasks, and I have another colleague here who is in another, and I am more in charge of metrics and certification, but I have someone from another of the groups here also online, I guess, or at least registered to participate. I think that this series of meetings will be useful to inform also the EOSC working groups, especially I think that the skills group is also attending, and it makes sense for us to listen to what the stakeholders are saying. We are one of the stakeholders, but it's important for us to hear the groups from the clusters and the 5B projects, and so it will be useful for us also. We will listen. It's the only place in a sense where we can really meet the clusters and regional nodes and thematic projects, so it's very useful. Thank you for organizing that.
Thank you, Françoise. We will be sure that, so according to the availability you've given to attend each of the sessions, we will do our best and to engage with at least one representative from stakeholder in each session, and according to each pillar, we will look for specific EOSC working groups as well. But yeah, they all committed to, I think we have a quite good representation. And we will also be sure that all the outcomes of this exercise, so of each of the workshops, and in the end of the final work document that we're going to produce, will be shared with all the EOSC channel we have, and with all the communities that you're all involved to. So your support, and I'm talking in particular the people from the clusters, for instance, or the champions. Your support in sharing the information you get during these days and these weeks with your communities is really of relevance for the project, but then for all the objectives we are trying to achieve. FAIRsFAIR Consortium is working on a series of let's say, a group of assets and activities, and contributions from different stakeholders is fundamental to ensure the work is done properly and the objectives really meet needs of the research teams in Europe. So that's why we really aim at getting a good representation of all these stakeholders in these meetings. We're not targeting 1,000 group of people. The group is a small one. These events are on invitation only, but that's a reason we want to ensure debate, discussions, and outcomes. And at the same time, as I mentioned, since it's fundamental to have a good representation, feel free to bring in any colleagues that can support with this. I don't know if Simon or Marion, you want to mention anything more?
No, not in particular. So I'm glad that we have already provided some information that is useful, and I really support Francois's appeal that the stakeholders, the projects, the clusters use this opportunity to also give information for the working groups. Yeah, and for the working groups to ask and to suggest and to help us to align. So we invited you for this session of 90 minutes. We were probably pretty sure that we wouldn't need all the time. It was just to give you also time for questions. If there are no further questions, I think we should close this session and ask you to use the extra time to start filling out the spreadsheet.
Yeah, maybe before we leave, so the next meeting, the first one will be on the 6th of May. So whether you're managing to attend or not, we really kindly invite you to try and fill in the spreadsheet with information by that day, so that we can organize each session properly, and the chairs will have enough information to moderate the discussion. And then, as said, each session is short in time. It is a 90-minute session, but we really expect engagement, questions, and contribution from you all. Of course, as soon as the series go on, we will have a series of lessons to learn. So also feel free to comment and suggest even on practical things that can help us improve even during this time frame. Yes, we will share, so immediately, so if not today, it will be tomorrow, we will be sharing slides and the recording of these videos, and we will find a place on the website where you will have access to these materials.
Yes, Sarah, if I can say one word about what could be useful, I think it was asked already. If we could have all the participants appearing on the screen, it would help to know who is around.
Yes, yes.
And so I think it would be good. And I know that you have a question and answer file. And it's important to make sure everybody can see all the questions and answers, if at one point you decide to use it, because I know it's not it seems not to be what is proposed by the system if you don't change the setting.
Yeah, I will.
Because last time I had one of these webinars and it was awfully frustrating because there were many questions and it was impossible to see the questions and to begin to discuss and so on. So.
Okay, thanks for pointing it out. I'll be sure that all participants will have let's say panelist role, and question and answer are available to everybody. There will also be a shared document just for the sake of the rapporteuring activity. But yes, thanks. Okay. I think we're done. For those of you who wants to have a chat with our champions, we are meeting later on this afternoon for an informal meeting with them. So in case you want to join, you're very much welcome. We've already shared details with the, I think, called FAIRsFAIR partners and of course the champions, but if anyone else seems time and just write, and I'll be happy to send you the details. We are meeting at 4 Central European time.
Okay, then on the spot, 11 o'clock summertime. Thank you all very much. And we're looking forward to seeing you in the virtual workshop sessions starting next Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you all. Stay all safe. Bye.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.